Hi there, it's Paul from Wolf Software Systems is our website, and it's wolf.uk.com, by the way, the website. And I wanted to talk about one of my favourite subjects, and that's object storage. Now, object storage is not storage like a normal file system. It's designed really, and its real use is for things where you're writing a lot of files and reading, like write once, read many kind of situations. It's a flat kind of storage that stores the object and metadata for it, so it's ideal for doing things like video downloading. And our particular application is Wolf Territories Grid, where we have millions of assets, and I'll show you some of that in just a second. So one of the advantages of it is because it's designed to do that, it's really ideal for document storage, video streaming. So you, with object storage, you can download, it could start downloading a file, like downloading a video. That's what they've got, a Wolf video here. You can start downloading a video, and then in the middle of the video, you can say I don't want it anymore, and it'll stop downloading. But there's some gotchas, and there's some things that you have to know about it. Object storage can be quite expensive, and if you choose the wrong object storage for your application, you can pay a lot in what we call ingress and egress fees. If you don't know what those are basically upload and download fees. So if you can imagine, the big problem with it is that, let's say you've got a bunch of videos sitting on your object storage, and somebody just goes and downloads a million copies of it over different things, and you've got no kind of caching or anything like that. What you'll end up with is very high ingress and egress fees. So you can avoid that by using different providers, and we were using a provider before that had quite high ingress and egress fees, and it seemed to be completely random what they were charging. So we moved from them, and you can actually live move. You can move from one object storage provider to another, but it can take some time if you're moving millions of objects. But you can use, so rclone, what we use a tool called rclone. There's a few others out there, but rclone allows us to do something called rclone union, where you can mount a drive across two different object storage servers. So what it'll do is it'll go to the first one and say, have you got this file? And it'll go, oh, well, I haven't got it. So it'll say, okay. And then it'll go to the second one and say, oh, there's the file, and it'll pull it down. So if while you're migrating, you can actually have that in place. So I'll show you what we're doing at the moment. So we've been using iDrive E2's very good value for money. We've got 22 million objects sitting on iDrive E2 in 8 buckets in 2 locations. Both in Frankfurt, because latency is very important. If you're building games, database latency and data latency is very important, and it's one of the things that we kind of specialize in because of Wolf Territories Grid, which is a big virtual world that we own. So in this case, this bucket, this object storage was using nearly 4 terabytes now, and there's a whole bunch of buckets, and this is like the control panel. And iDrive E2 has got some good features because they've got a replication which allows us to replicate from one bucket to another. And you might go, why is it not running? The reason it's not running is it degrades performance, and we can't have that at the moment. So we are actually doing a manual migration at the moment. And they also have a thing where you can migrate data into their service. And I think what I like about it is it's quite inexpensive. They've just doubled their prices, which was a bit naughty, but it's still very good value for money. It's got a nice control panel. Yeah, I kind of like iDrive V2. I think they did have some stability problems, but they seem to have ironed those out. But it's just mainly that we tend to have issues with when things get under load. It can start getting a bit tetchy. So what we're doing is we're building our own object storage, and that's running on Minio, which is, if you want to build your own from scratch, this is really good. It's not easy to set up and get running, and I know Minio probably might disagree with me on this, but to get everything running perfectly, especially service certificates, if you're doing what we've done. So if we look at our metrics for this object storage setup, we've only got 1.3 million objects on here at the moment. It's still transferring from 2 different data sources. In fact, we've got to transfer a lot of data onto here, and you can see that we've got 2 servers with 2 drives in them each, which is fine for our needs. They've both got 6 terabyte drives in them, and that gives us really good redundancy. So between the two of them, we can lose a server, we can lose a drive, we can lose 2 drives on one server, we can lose a whole server. So we've got some quite good redundancy, and redundancy is is so important, folks. If I grieve when I see I've talked about redundancy before on a certain website, and it's amazing. Some guy came back and actually went, "Oh, I've been running mine fine on my little computer for the last 10 years." And I'm thinking, yeah, but if you don't have redundancy, that means if it fails, you've got to restore a backup. If you've got 20 million objects or 20 million files to restore from a backup, you're going to be here 3 days. It's going to be, it could be weeks before you have it all restored. But the beauty of object storage is we can have this kind of setup where we've got multiple servers, and if I want to add more servers, I can do it. I just add the new server, copy the config over, adjust the other 2, start up the new one, and then start up the other 2, restart the other 2. I can turn one off, turn the other off, and they'll all work. So, and then there is of course the old issue of how do you make it so that if one server goes off, the object storage still works. So what we do is we use probably Nginx, which is a piece of software for load balancing. And then the problem with Nginx, of course, is that if you have a load balancer and the load balancer fails, then it doesn't matter how many servers you got behind it. Now, the way I get around that is, so let's look at one of our Proxmox clusters. This is just running some stuff so that you can hear all these servers and everything like that. So what I will do is with Proxmox, we will mount... So we'll mount our object storage on the host. So what we'll do is we'll set up an Nginx server on every host that will manage the connections into the Minio cluster. And why we do that is I do the same with other things as well. Like for instance, we've got a 5-node Galera cluster. That's a database cluster in here. And again, that needs load balancing into. So we use MaxScale to manage that. But every little server has MaxScale running on it. So the only reason we'd have a failure is if the actual server it was running on went down. If Baby had a problem and Baby went down, then only the things that are on Baby would be affected by it. So that solves the problem. So we deploy Nginx to every server, and the Nginx will then manage the load balancing into the Minio cluster, the object storage cluster, which means we can turn stuff on and off. So I hope that's kind of useful. So the tool to use is rclone. Hints with rclone, VFS caching should be full, especially if you're talking to quite slow object storage and you're writing a lot. So yeah, I guess that if you want to talk more about object storage and what we can do for your company, because obviously we can build object storage, we can build these kinds of clusters. We're a full stack software house at Wolf Software Systems, and we can pretty much do anything you need, from building a simple website up to a complex system. We've just recently rebuilt a 12-year-old system in a month. Basically took their data, completely rebuilt it and delivered it to them, and they've been using it ever since, and that's really cool. So we do just about anything. Get in touch. We offer a free session to talk about your project, and so the website's wolf.uk.com. You get to chat to our AI Charlie. He can book an appointment with you, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody. Thanks very much.